Jimmy and his friends were completely cut off from civilization, stranded on a sun-baked rock in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Their only escape required constructing a massive, makeshift sailboat out of local bamboo, an effort that saw Guddu salvaging every inch of rope they could find, including several strands that appeared frayed and strangely hollowed out. This schematic illustrates the danger. Wet bamboo and 5 passengers require massive upward displacement. Securing 4 hollow blue barrels to the corners pushes the scale into the green zone. Lose even 1 barrel, the weight distribution fails, and the raft instantly sinks. Their survival hinged on a zero-tolerance margin of error. Those 4 plastic barrels represented the group's entire margin for survival. After days of searching under a blistering sun, the exhausted crew finally dragged the 4th barrel back to camp. With their escape route mathematically secured, they settled around the fire, assuming the hardest part was over. But late that night, Detective Guddu noticed a discrepancy. The layout of their camp had been disturbed. One of the 4 essential barrels had shifted from its spot in the sand. It hadn't rolled away on the wind or the tide. Guddu found forensic evidence, tiny, deliberate drag marks cutting through the sand, leading away from the ocean and toward the tree line. He immediately connected those drag marks to a biological anomaly from earlier that afternoon. Another member of the group, Nolan, had suddenly collapsed right in the middle of the camp. Nolan had been stumbling and physically drained. The rest of the crew wrote off his erratic behavior as severe heat exhaustion, or perhaps tropical delirium brought on by the brutal conditions. But extreme heat exhaustion severely depletes muscle function. A person suffering from delirium doesn't wait for nightfall to drag a cumbersome 60-pound barrel uphill. The tracks in the sand suggested a calculated intent. Following those tracks meant leaving the exposed safety of the beach and entering the claustrophobic, pitch-black canopy of the island's deep jungle. This environment was lethal. Venomous snakes slithered through the thick mud, and massive spiders spun webs between the trees. Entering this area alone in the dark was an illogical risk. Relying on a single flashlight, Guddu masked his footsteps and tracked the heavy gouge marks left by the barrel as they wound deeper into the dark undergrowth. Finally, the beam of light cut through the darkness and caught the suspect. Nolan was standing in the mud, secretly rolling the vital blue barrel even further into the dense foliage. The rest of the group, following close behind, erupted in panic. Jimmy cornered Nolan, accusing him of intentionally sabotaging their raft and condemning them all to die on the island. The harsh arithmetic of their situation left no room for debate. The moment the strict mathematical margin of error was broken, the group viewed a trusted friend as a threat to their survival. But Nolan pointed the flashlight past the trees, revealing his actual destination, an abandoned, heavily damaged rescue station, flooded with murky tidal water. Inside the crumbling structure sat an old emergency radio. Nolan's objective was to repair this transmitter, but the rising ocean tide was constantly threatening to swallow the electronics. He applied a simple piece of physical logic. By strapping the blue barrel to the radio console, he used its displacement to keep the fragile electronics elevated above the floodwaters during high tide. Jimmy and the crew remained skeptical. They stared at the flooded room, dismissing his explanation as the desperate ramblings of a heat-stroked mind. Guddu then recognized a physical detail. It was the same internal material missing from the hollowed-out rope he'd handled while building the sailboat's rigging. This macro shot shows the radio's circuit board. Those newly wrapped strands of bare copper wire bridging the broken connections match the materials stripped from the rope back at camp. The mechanical evidence confirmed Nolan's efforts to salvage the transmitter just as a rescue helicopter answered the signal. By analyzing the physical details, the group discovered their actual path home.